Sota woke up in another world as a level 1 drop item from a slime. All his stats are F, but he has a godlike power of S rank drop rate. Sota found himself in a strange and unfamiliar place after hearing a game-like sound. Meanwhile, Emily Brown had her own surprise when a slime blob she just killed unexpectedly dropped Sota. She was confused because Sota looked like a human, but since he was a drop from killing a slime, she thought he was a piece of meat. She decided to cut him up, but Sota got up, scaring her. The girl jumped back, questioning if he was really a human. It seemed pretty much obvious, but the girl couldn't understand why he appeared after she killed a slime. Now both are confused because Sota couldn't understand how he dropped from a slime. The girl calls it unexpected because slimes usually drop bean sprouts. Sota thinks she's crazy and tries to get some answers and asks about slimes and drops. The girl is confused as if Sota was questioning common sense. She tells him to follow and watch what she does. He does as asked and sees a level 1 slime in the room. The girl charges forward, takes a hit that loses half her HP, and smashes the slime down. He claps for her performance, wishing to clap something else, and poof, the slime disappears and drops a few bean sprouts. She explains that the slimes on level 1 of Tululu dungeon floor drop bean sprouts, common knowledge she weighs, but not for Sota. He looks around and starts to freak out, confused. He asks if that's how bean sprouts are made. She replies with yes, pretty much everything. He gets confused with the everything part. She then clarifies that in this world, everything is a dungeon monster drop. He's confused but decides to follow and ask her stuff. First, he questions if he's still in Japan or on Earth, but the girl doesn't understand his questions and ignores him. The girl continues moving forward and killing more slimes for bean sprouts, so he decides to ask why she isn't looking for other monsters. She explains that only slimes exist on the first level of this dungeon. He questions going to level 2 or above. She reveals she's weak and she needs to level up. He is impressed that people can level up. To be fair, at this point, any dumbass knows they're in another world if they see a slime, not Sota, though. The girl shows him a frame in the dungeon walls, explaining it to be a status board. If he touches it, he can see his stats rated from F to A. He realizes that it seems like a game and how the stats are rated. He then notices there's a second page. She explains that it's a drop stat page. This is the part he gets confused. What does it mean when the stats are high? She explains that high stats make it easier to get drops and increases the drop quantity. She claims to have a high plant drop rate, which is E-rated, high as hell, you know, and that's why she's getting bean sprouts. He decides to check his stats just to find out that he should be ashamed to be in another world. His max level is 1 and all his stats are F. She clarifies his max level, which is obvious as hell, and they decide to check his second page. Well, she can only describe it as sad. He loses all his motivation to live here, while the girl is counting the alphabet, apparently. This girl doesn't know that S-rated stats are actually the highest, and that's all his drop rate stats. He thinks it may be different here and decides to try it out. He looks around for a weapon, and the girl lets him use her hammer. Turns out she probably stole it from Thor. He almost breaks his arm while dropping it to the floor because it's too heavy. The girl apologizes and gives him a bamboo spear. They then notice a slime heading toward them, and Sota tries to deal with it. He manages to land a hit after some tries, and the drop is crazy. It's a huge amount of bean sprouts. He realizes it was a lot more than what Emily had ever seen before. He then realizes that he was right. S is above A. He asks if she has ever seen someone with an S stat, but she replies that they don't exist. Since both are feeling hungry, the girl makes a bean sprout soup to enjoy. But when Sota tries it, tears start falling from his eyes. The girl panics, thinking it tastes bad, but explains that it's been a long time since he could enjoy a warm meal with someone else. He starts to remember his life as an office worker. He always worked extra unpaid hours and ate only cold stuff from a store. In the end, his health got ruined and he ended up in the hospital. He tried to compensate by working even harder and ended up taking a nap at work, and then he woke up in a different world after becoming a slime drop item. He tears down, realizing that he worked for nothing and that his life was hell. The girl tries to comfort him, telling him that his efforts will always pay off if he works hard, and the longer it takes, the bigger the reward. The girl then mentions that the best way to do it is to work hard and then be rewarded when they are reborn in their next life. Sota thanks her for comforting him and decides to stay positive in this life. He wants to find a place to stay, and the girl mentions the town right outside the dungeon. She then mentions that he should go now because she's about to also go to sleep. He's confused and asks if she's going to sleep inside the dungeon. She explains that she doesn't have money to rent an in-room because her drop rate is low, so she sleeps inside the dungeon. But she dreams that one day she could have an apartment. Sota gets up, ready to leave, and she hands him the bamboo spear. He needs something to defend himself, and if he needs to find her in the future, then he can come to the level 1 dungeon. He asks her name, and she replies that she's Emily. Sota moves to the city and starts to understand the basics of this world. The currency is pilos, and the sprouts that he got from the slime are worth 200 pilos. Renting a room costs 2,000 pilos per night, and a dish similar to ramen is 500 pilos. He checks the prices of everything he wants and then goes inside the dungeon. He kills several slimes, realizing how lucky he is when he realized that he was permanently level 1. He thought that he was living in hell again, but the drop rate stat is so overpowered that it compensates for it. After 3 days, he comes back to Emily and takes her to an old house. She's confused, but he explains that he rented it for 20,000 pilos a month, the amount he earned in the last few days. She looks around, finding that it's an amazing place, but he suddenly hands her the house key. She doesn't understand what's going on, but he tells her that this is her new house, and he will be covering her rent. The girl claims she cannot accept it, but he tells her it's his repayment for the soup. He thanks her again for the warm, delicious soup. The girl almost tears down with those words and accepts living there. She notices the injuries on his hands, and he explains he's been fighting non-stop. She then makes her decision. She says that she will be making soon for the rest of her life and wants him to enjoy it with her. He then realizes she's asking him to live with her and accepts the deal. From then on, Sota continues his routine of killing slimes and selling the bean sprouts, but the price isn't that great. He only gets about 2,000 pilos. He considers going to the second level and finds out that it drops carrots. The receptionist named Erza talks about a new dungeon that appeared recently. She explains that sometimes dungeons appear and disappear out of nowhere and that there's a group investigating the drop items. Sota says goodbye to her, and she takes the chance to ask if he wants to have a drink with her. As you expect, he says not this time. He heads back home to Emily, who's happily welcoming him back. He's impressed that she managed to clear everything, and now it looks like a real house. The best part is that Emily acts like his wife. She gives him a hot towel to relax, tea, and prepared dinner. He tells her to relax and have some rest, but she's a hyped-up bunny. She's loving the feeling of living in her house and doing all kinds of things. He talks about the new dungeon, but she says that apparently there are no drop items there. He gets curious about it because everything in this world comes from a dungeon drop item, so having a dungeon without drops seems strange. He decides to explore it, surprised that nobody is there. He guesses that maybe it doesn't drop anything at all. Suddenly, a skeleton appears and tries to attack him. He dodges it by not moving at all and stabs it with his bamboo spear. Of course, it gets stuck in the skeleton's rib cage, and when he thinks that he's about to die, a stone pillar falls on top of the skeleton. With the skeleton restrained, Sota takes the chance to destroy the skull. The monster disappears, and Sota notices a seed on the floor. He picks it up, and when it disappears suddenly, Sota hears a message mentioning that his max health points have been increased by 1. He goes back to the level 1 dungeon with Emily to check his stats, and she cannot believe his level is still stuck, but his health stat increased from F to C. He was surprised that the seed effect was real and decided to kill more skeletons. Emily joined him, and they managed to learn how it works. When Emily defeats a skeleton, the seed didn't drop. Plus, she cannot pick up one of the seeds that dropped from Sota's kills. Emily can barely believe this is possible because you can usually pick up other people's drops, but she's still hyped up because this is also the first time someone gets stronger without leveling up. Sota decides that he will continue farming the dungeon until all his health stats reach S. When he manages to, he tells Emily that he is going to the level 2 dungeon to find out how strong he is. But Emily is making a strange sad face. She reveals that she's worried about him. He worked to exhaustion to rent a house for her, and then after finding the new dungeon, he's been farming all night. She tells him to come back at night and rest at home instead of being reckless. Sota remembers that in his past life, he didn't have anyone who worried about him, but now he has. so he promises to come back early. He goes to the level 2 dungeon and gets hit by a slime, but he only took just a small amount of damage. After getting hit a few times, he manages to kill the slime. As previously mentioned, it drops a carrot, a huge carrot. Another slime appears, and when it's almost getting close to Sota, it's hit by a fireball. A trio of guys who need a nice punch appear and start mocking him after finding out Sota is level 1. I guess they forgot to compare carrot sizes because Sota is bigger. The guys decide to leave, and Sota feels a presence behind him. There's a beast woman, a bunny girl in that fancy outfit behind him. Of course, Sota asks the most important question, are those ears real? The girl doesn't reply. She says she hates level 1 people and hits his head. Sota is confused and becomes even more when she turns around and walks away. He returns home after farming and tells Emily that people bought his carrots for 8,000 pilos. They think this is easy money until someone knocks on the door. Yes, the bunny girl is back and smacks his head again, telling him she hates low levels. She then starts flicking her body and tells him